don't have any mercy, especially Nick Rowland, my mentor, BBC. He doesn't have any mercy. It's true, but he has all these regulations.
You're recording this now.
Don't worry, don't worry. It will be censored, edited, and all that. So, the goat, the wizard, the goat, and the man who won the war. Okay. Wait, if you're ready, I'm ready to.
Yeah.
We're gonna have two takes. The first take is only about 1 minute or less.
Okay.
Because I'm just trying to exercise the pronunciation and all that. The second take will be just all the way.
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3 tests. 1, 2, 3 tests. Welcome to the National Quiz Choice. 1, 2, 3 tests. Richard Elfyn. Richard Elfyn, Mr. DJ Britton. Correct, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Britton.
Britton, yeah. Britton. Mr. DJ Britton. He's an award-winning dramatist, director, and
Dramaturg.
dramaturg.
But say dramatist and director if you want. Leave dramaturg out.
Dramatist and director. Okay.
Yeah, it's easy.
That'll do, yeah.
Okay. and then formerly a national executive producer heading the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. Now based in Wales. Okay. And now you're gonna and the rest you can talk about it on your own on BBC. And Richard Elfyn is the star of the show. The wizard, the goat, and the man who won the war. Great. 1, 2, 3 tests. Okay. I'm going to start rolling. 1, 2, and 3. Hi, welcome to the National Quiz Choice Online News. I'm Robin Stienberg, and welcome to the Stienberg Review here in Singapore. And today's guests, we're having two very special gentlemen who are going to give us a great insights on the play right industry as well as drama and so forth that's happening here in the world. And right now in Singapore, everybody's wondering how is the business of being in theaters going to be like for the future, and how music management is going to be affected pretty much in the next coming 5 years in Southeast Asia. Now this week we're going to have Mr. DJ Britton and also his star performer Mr. Richard Elfyn, who's going to present to us the wizard, the goat, and the man who won the war over at the Singapore Management University. And so if you can't catch it, not to worry, you can always log on to SMU's website and find out more information. So without further ado, let me introduce Mr. DJ Britton, who is here with me. He is an award-winning dramatist and director, and he's now based in Welsh, and is also formerly a national executive producer heading the Australian Broadcasting Corporation's radio drama department at one time. And he's now leading a dramatic writing programs and undergraduate and postgraduate creative writing degree courses at Swansea University. Now, and next to him is the star himself, is Mr. Richard Elfyn, and he is been performing for quite a while. Actually, a senior actor for The Wizard, the Goat, and the Man Who Won the War. And you know what? It's written and directed by DJ Britton, and it's especially catered the role just for the star himself. Now, let's begin with Mr. DJ Britton. Welcome to our show.
Thanks.
And also Mr. Elfyn.
Thank you.
It's been really an honor to have both of wonderful men with great talent in theater. I wish I was one. Many have asked, what is the trend right now today, in the role of theater, and the way it has been evolved over the years, because right now theater has evolved so much over the last 50 years, and now you are here in Singapore, you probably have a better observation than I do.
I've been back and forward through Singapore for many years now, so I've, with one eye, watching what the theatre in Singapore has done has been very interesting, and then I suppose in my own work, having moved from Australia to Britain and to Wales in particular, that gives a slightly different insight. But I would say, I don't know if you agree, Richard, but I would say that the theatre has gone in several different directions at the same time. One being towards the big and spectacular, War Horse, Matilda, shows like that in the West End. One being towards the very experimental, and another towards being small scale, manageable, and I think what we try to do is intelligent and popular at the same time. So I think there are those different directions that are going on, and you can't say that and here I'm talking, of course, about Western theatre. You can't really say that any of those are dominant. They all have a different place in the spectrum, don't they?
They're all, well, the last play I did was God of Carnage, which I'm interested to go to see tomorrow night, I think.
I mean, that is extraordinary about the globalisation of some aspects of theatre, where Richard steps out of a production of that in Britain, gets on a plane to Singapore to do The Wizard, the Goat, and the Man Who Won the War, and walks into town and sees posters for God of Carnage here, which is...
It's an Asian perspective, actually.
Yes.
The reason I mentioned it, while I was working in the theatre, there was a commercial theatre project, star-led, in the theatre at the same time, and that drew in a large audience as a result of having a star on board, whereas our production was about the play, and that drew an audience in for a different reason.
Audience,
and that makes it interesting in some respects, where you look at the demographic of the audience on one hand and the different demographic on the other, and they're there for two different reasons. But the end product is very similar, I suppose.
Well, the end product is a contract between the audience and what's going on stage, and the contract changes, I think, depending on the style of theatre.
It's different things for different people, and different things to attract different people to come to the theatre.
Richard earlier this year, was in a very experimental piece of theatre, very experimental, called Pornography. It's not about pornography, incidentally, but that's the name of the very experimental piece, which has a different audience again, entirely different.
Written by award-winning, BAFTA award-winning writer Simon Stevens, which was an amazing play.
Now, about this play, The Wizard, the Goat, and the Man Who Won the War, Mr. Britton, how did you got your inspiration from to write this wonderful play, and how did Richard Elfyn, how did you got this great inspiration to be part of this wonderful work?
Well, we were working together on. David was running a course in Stienberg in North Wales, where Lloyd George was born. That's where he was from, and it was during the course of this week that I was brought in as an actor to work on the different pieces that had been written during the week. And because it was Lloyd George's house, we were having a discussion in the room that he'd passed away in, and we came up with this idea.
Yes. I said, as an outsider in Wales coming in, although I've been there for 12 years now, I said to Richard, how is it that this man, David Lloyd George, who was one of Britain's greatest Prime Ministers of all time and the only Welsh Prime Minister, how is it that there hasn't been a play about him? And Richard said, well, it's very difficult for a Welshman to write a play about Lloyd George because opinions are so separated. The people love him or hate him. And I said, well, that's the play. The fact that people, that there isn't a single view. Of course, he was a man who had, who at the same time had great achievements, but great flaws.
Absolutely.
And just like, apart from you, Robin, who probably have no flaws whatsoever.
No. I do have some flaws.
In that sense, he's just like everybody else, but a very high achiever who comes to believe essentially that he's beyond the rules, I suppose, in some aspects, and of course,
in some respects,
he had a somewhat expansive love life, and the fact that he was neither wholly bad nor good, that makes him a subject for writing. But it was difficult, I think. It may have taken an outsider's eye along with an insider's performance to be able to work those things out. But once we got started, it was wonderful.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, being an actor, playing the role, what was the most challenging part of this entire play? Was it the emotion, the anger, or the character?
I'd say all those things really. All of them are there at some point during the play, and from learning the lines to trying to get every nuance of the play across to the audience, and that's my job. And I'm lucky enough to have such wonderful words written by David here to work with, and and I think it's a sign of a play where the lines sink in quite quickly, and David's always do, and I think that's because they do what they're supposed to do. They tell the story, and it makes your job so much easier.
Now, which part of the script that you actually love doing it over and over again, if you had a choice?
Well, I must be honest. The play lasts an hour, and I do love all of it. You know, but there
really, all of it.
There are certain parts of it that I suppose I like more than others. Where he talks about the death of his daughter, Meyer, and how much she meant to him, and how much that loss affected his life, and that gives you an insight into the man and what drove him and what destroyed him and you know what his goals were in life.
Did you actually cry at times on stage when you had to describe that?
Yeah, I think I cried the first time I read it, so I think that said a lot. You know.
Yeah, it's a very moving passage, because it encompasses, I think, a very deep and basic emotion, and it's quite interesting within the time of the play, because it comes after a sequence where in the audience you're thinking he really is a bit of a stinker, and then this thing comes around and you kind of go, but this is a man in pain at the same time, you know. So this is my favourite bit, I have to say, is not to do with my writing, but it's to do with his performance, which is there's a moment, we mustn't give too much away, but there's a moment where Richard, as Lloyd George, talks about having got the British cabinet to sing a Welsh song. So his parliamentary colleagues, he got them to sing in Downing Street, and
when we went to Carnarvon in North Wales on our third performance of the play, and the night that I actually sort of settled down and relaxed into the performance, because you have the first night and it's full of uncertainty about how it's going to be received. Second night is always difficult because you're following the first, and then the third night you relax. But we were also in I suppose his territory, and they all joined in with him. And
so Richard sings,
and they all joined. And you know, it was an amazing moment.
And from now on, that
for them as well, I think
that happens everywhere. And what was lovely about that for us was that we didn't expect that. We didn't expect when he says, and I got them to sing the Vanwy, which is this famous Welsh song. We didn't expect that when Richard started singing it, the audience would join in.
It was a wonderful moment.
It was a spine-tingling moment, yeah.
Wow.
And it mostly happens now.
And the lines of the hymn as well lend themselves to the character after that point. That is a touching moment.
For the audience, it might be quite nice for you to. I'm not going to ask you to sing it, but although you could. But because it gives a great nature of the play is in English, but it has some Welsh language in it, and the song, of course, is in Welsh. So why don't you say those lines in the
Well, the song is, he says, although I did arrange the cabinet into voice parts and have them sing Paham mai dicter o myfanwy yn llenwydd lygau dion di a thryddiau tirion o myfanwy. And it goes on like that. And when they joined in, it was amazing.
It was spine tingling. It was, it was what you know.
Wow.
And
it was amazing. Yeah.
it's a wonderful song. But
I must say that you should win an Academy Award for that.
But then
no?
after that point, we talk about the Australian Prime Minister, who was also Welsh speaking at that time. So there were two prime ministers who were dealing with the effects of the First World War in Versailles, who were both Welsh speaking, and they used to send notes to each other in Welsh. You know,
Wow.
Billy Hughes and Lloyd George.
No, Mr. Britton, how did you came up with this title, The Wizard, the Goat, and the Man Who Won the War?
well, they are the three. I mean, it's lovely, and you know, sometimes people say, you know, that the best titles are single words or you know, short and sweet. And this has become affectionately known as the Wizard. People say,
Wizard,
"Oh, I
yeah.
saw you in the Wizard the other night," you know. But the title has worked very, very well for us. But they are the three. They are essentially the three nicknames that David Lloyd George was given.
Oh,
The
okay.
Wizard, because he was called the Welsh Wizard.
The Welsh Wizard.
Because of his. Sorry.
But the goat is interesting because we took the goat to mean a man who chases women.
Yeah.
And that's what it became eventually.
And that
but initially, and I was told this by his grandson,
Yeah.
who came to see the show in Pwllheli, and said the reason that he was called the goat was because he would devour paper, and they'd throw briefs at him, and he'd just devour them all and come up with a plan each time.
Yeah.
He was a very decisive man.
But it very quickly became, that's right, but it very quickly became synonymous with his womanizing.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Wizard was his political magic, essentially, wasn't it? And his oratory. The Goat became to be his sexual prowess. And the Man Who Won the War is precisely what the newspapers, that's what they called after the Great War, the First World War. He was celebrated as the man who won the war. Well, of course, no single man wins a war, but he was in charge at the time. And so the Wizard, the Goat, and the Man Who Won the War is the three things by which he's known. But David Lloyd George is a dramatist's dream, because he is such a complex and controversial and conflicted character. And charismatic. And then you get then you look at the headlines, which is what I did, you know, The Wizard, the Goat, the Man Who Won the War, and there's the title presented for us. I mean, it was easy, really.
I remember seeing it for the first time. Gosh, that's long.
So that must have come about by accident.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Did you trademark it?
Ah, no. Oh, gosh, better rush off and do that, hadn't we?
David wrote the piece while I was there as well. I was involved in the process. So when I first arrived, it'd be 7 pages. Then the next
so we
day it'd
literally
be 3
we
pages.
did it that way.
And then it would develop that way.
So where that's a wonderful process was, I mean, compared with the usual process, which I have used mostly, which is you write a complete script. It goes to if you're not directing yourself, you know, it goes to a director who comes back with comments, and there's a piece of paper at the end of it, or a block of paper, which you then give to the actors. But this time, what we did essentially, because we were so passionate about the subject, and as Richard said, I would write perhaps 6 or 7 pages. We'd get together, rehearse it, move it about. I would then rewrite it. I would adjust the material, because one of the things, Richard and I have worked together quite a lot, but we had never had the chance to actually really see how we could push what we did. And of course what I found was that Richard has performance talents that are way beyond the normal central naturalistic acting talents, and singing being one of them, which you don't get much of a chance to do. And so as I wrote it, we would find more. I mean, Richard's a wonderful dancer, and you might not think that Lloyd George is a particularly suitable subject for dancing, but we make him dance.
A bit.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to do that for this play?
Oh, he does, yeah.
Okay. Now, moving forward, how important is being innovative as a director and actor? Because innovation and being creative plays a very important key aspect in this industry, and especially in Asia, Singapore and other countries in Southeast Asia, they have trouble in trying to cultivate creative ideas and imagination. So how can that
it's not
come
a case
about?
of, you can have an idea, but getting that idea across initially can be quite difficult, and sometimes it's easier to judge something after you've seen it rather than before you see it on a piece of paper, and I think that's definitely a problem for
I
innovators.
Think, yeah, I think
or writers.
How the difficulty is that to find a way of understanding both what it is that you are trying to artistically achieve and understanding the communicative process with the audience. And so innovation is everything to me. I mean, I don't want to keep running around the same running track. I want to be running up new mountains, and which is what we did with this. But it isn't possible just to say, let's be innovative. You have to actually say, let's find a way of telling this particular story, but let's do it in a way that is fresh in everything that we did. So when we were working together, this play has, or rather this story, has a lot of opportunities for cliche and for repeating old things. And every time when we were rehearsing that we came to one, even when it was comfortable or attractive, we'd have the thing that says, no, it's cheesy, it's stuck, and I'm not saying they didn't pop into our head, because they do. They're the first thing you think of, is the comfortable place to go. So we tried to avoid that by going to more uncomfortable places and pushing the bounds of it, didn't we?
Now, Now, about leadership, how important is leadership being in this artistic formats right now? Because I know you as a director, you have to take control with all the creative processes that's involved, and you as an actor, an award-winning actor actually, how do you see yourself able to overcome those challenges with him as a director and any other director that you work with?
My job is to please my director. That's it. That's in a nutshell. And I try to do that as much as I can. I try to, whatever their goals are, I try to make them materialize, on stage. And that's my main priority is to my director and then the audience.
I think what you have to have is a relationship of total trust, and so we talk about leadership, and I think there are issues of cultural leadership that one should address, but within the creative process, there are the forward movement comes from total trust, so that if I ask Richard to do something, he has to, and we do, we've got, has to trust that it's for a purpose, not just for me playing games, And similarly, I have to trust that if I say to Richard in this conversation, can you do that? I have to trust that he will do it to the utmost. And also, I think, because trust is crucial, it's the same with
Absolutely.
You know, the technicals and everything. We have to trust that people will do this. That's how you have a mutual collaboration, which is what good theatre is. It's absolutely collaborative.
Yeah.
And incidentally, there's a point, you know, where I give the leadership to Richard. And you know when that is? When he walks out on the stage, it's no good me thinking that I'm the leader of the process, because for the evening,
He's the star.
he's the, yeah, and he is
Not
the
the star. It was just the
yeah,
one who was on the
no,
stage.
but yeah, it's your job. Your job.
Yeah.
I can't leap up onto the stage and say, no, 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 not like that. That's not what I meant.
No.
Because he's in charge then. And one of the strange things is that people don't actually realise that. They think that, many people in the audience think that the actor is almost a robot who has been, during rehearsal, programmed to do what the director has said. Well, it's not like that at all.
You're given so much freedom to explore,
Yeah.
but when you run out of ideas, I can always turn to David and say, well, where am I going now?
When-
and then
and what-
he comes up with all the work he's done studying the man and the history around the man, and there's so much wealth of. He's like an encyclopedia of knowledge about Lloyd George. All I need to do is ask. And
But
I
at the
get
point
the
we
answer.
pin the show down, then so we collaborate, we discuss, and then the show is pinned down. And at that point, sometimes my only direction to Richard, and this is what I will say before Friday night's performance here in Singapore, I will say, we'll have I have to leave Richard alone for at least the last half hour before a performance, maybe an hour, depending on how he's feeling. But the last thing I will say to Richard is, Rich, let's do the show we rehearsed. Yeah. And it's as simple as that, because that's,
Absolutely.
you know, we've done this show, so, you know, and we've rehearsed it, we've done all the work.
Yeah.
So have confidence, it's trust, isn't it? Again, have trust in what we've done, and just go ahead and do it. That's a different, so when you talk about leadership, I think actually genuine collaboration is the more important concept in the artistic process, with the acceptance that there is one hand finally on the tiller, and that is the director's, up to the point where Richard goes onto the stage and he takes over the tiller at that point. I'm the passenger then.
And he's the maestro.
He is,
And
yeah,
yes.
that's you know.
By the way, Richard, you know, Elfyn, I must confess, and I must ask you this: have you at times, and many of times, been a great actor? Have you ever improvised, new tactics or new forms of lines on the stage? Because, you know, you don't. I came to believe that many of times, you know, when you perform the same role as an actor on stage, it's not too often that actors would tend to improvise. Is that true for you?
I don't know about improv. It's there are 6,800 words to be said during the course of this play,
But you
all in
don't-
the right order, and that's my template. So that's rock solid. That is my foundation. The rest is up to me, and that's where my freedom comes in. Is in interpreting those lines, and
It's
yes,
a-
they do change from certain nights. I might have more emphasis on some bits, some nights rather than others, but that's only slight, really. But
Yes,
but
I mean,
quite
I
big for
think
me.
it's, you know, I kind of see the comparison essentially with, in a thing like this, Richard being a great concert pianist, and so he's playing the words, and just like a great concert pianist, some nights he will play them with a slightly different tempo. Some nights he'll play it with a slightly different emphasis, but what he won't do
Just change the
is
notes.
change the notes. Yeah. Now, there may be occasions where he gets a little lost, you know, and because those things happen.
Those things happen.
And then you may have to
every time
play
you do
that note to get back on. But improvisation in the way that Robin's talking about it, that's not a thing we do in this show at all, is
No.
it? No.
Oh, you wouldn't improvise in any parts.
No. Apart from anything else, if you went off on an improvisational pathway here, getting back to the play for an individual performer with so many words would be enormously difficult, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely, because dropping into the play to do a bit, like we did just now, is difficult because to me it runs from start to finish. So dropping in the middle is...
So similarly, dropping out in the middle because you want to do improvise something.
We start at the beginning and we finish at the end.
Yeah,
that's
I
it.
understand.
Yeah.
And
Now,
we run through.
now coming to the last part, that is the importance of artist management. Artist management has become plays a very critical role in Singapore as well as Asia as well, because it is an emerging market and it's a very young market, and everybody is trying to understand the role of the artist management and the artists themselves in theatre.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of people are confused. What is artist management, and what is the role of the artist management really do?
I mean, this is one for me really, because it's what I've been working on while I've been here, and I think what here questions of leadership are perhaps greater, but I think that the reason that there is an issue in a sense is that this is a very, very fast growing market. Lots of new arts facilities, buildings, but if you're going to have facilities, you've got to have people to manage them and shape them. And I think for Singapore especially, this is a great opportunity to make sure that the people who are going into those new facilities and those new jobs are well trained, and that's the reason I think why SMU is very keen on developing ways of marrying business skills to arts skills, and therefore having the kind of arts management that is really effective. The key to a good arts management, in my view, is a real understanding of how artists work, allied to a very solid business and management, standard procedures. And the best theatres I've known always work in that way. But the arts manager has to have a real understanding. Doesn't have to be an artist, and shouldn't be an artist in many ways. Might love, but has to have an understanding of the artistic process, the thing that we've just been talking about, which is collaborative and risky and quite often exhausting. And have an understanding of that process and view his or her role as that of the solid manager who is also the facilitator for artists. Richard, one of the great actors of his kind, cannot function unless the theatre is well run.
No.
And I think that's what we're seeking to do, is to have people who understand, yes, that I'm a writer and a director, and I have certain things that I absolutely need, and that sometimes I might push that argument unreasonably and ask for things that I don't really need. I think the arts manager needs to be the person who says, yes, look, that's fine, I understand, because I understand what it is that you're doing. But actually, that other thing that you're asking for, that's just too expensive, you can't have that. And it's quite reasonable.
Different areas, if you have theatre, if you're in a fixed theatre in a certain area, that what works in one town won't work in this one, because the demographic of the area and the people around it are different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they have different needs and what they want to see in a theatre.
That's a very good point.